This is a shiur on Sefiras HaOmer. I'm going to put the link to the source sheet in the description box below, and you can get the source sheet off Sefaria. First issue I'm going to address is just a little theory I have on the following issue, which is the issue of whether we say Ba'omer or La'omer when we're counting Sefiras HaOmer. You say Hayom Yom Echad Ba'omer. Some people say with a beis. Some people say Hayom Yom Echad La'omer. You take a look at the Mishnah Brura. He says here in Siman Taf Pei Tes, Sifkat and Ches Ba'omer, he says Uverov Poskim HaNusach La'omer. Most Poskim have the Nusach of La'omer. He's going off of the Ramah. The Ramah says Ba'omer with a beis. Mishnah Brura says most poskim say with a lamed. Miu ikar davar zeh eino ela lechatchila. He says this whole thing is only lechatchila. Kedei levar shehumonim miyom sheikrivu es haomer v'hola. The idea is we're just explaining that we're counting the days from the time the Omer was brought. V'yim lo omer ela hayom kach v'kach nami yotze. If all you said was today is such and such a day, you would also be yotze. It wouldn't be a problem. So it's not the biggest deal. It's not ma'akev. But he says most poskim say the proper nusach is la'omer. Take a look at one other source on this before I say my theory on this. The Taz. Taz says Hayom Yom Echad Ba'omer Kain Min Hagenu. Taz says the minhag is with a beis. Avol B'divrei Haran Sof Psachim Shemevi Beis Yosef Nizkar Sham La'omer B'lamed. The Ran mentions it with a lamed. V'nira Yoser Nachon Min Hagenu. The Taz says, he says our minhag to say it with a beis is a better minhag. To have biyom echad, because if you think about it, on the first day, shemonin, and when we count betchilas leil yud vav, we're counting in the evening. Have a perish b'minyan yemei haomer. The explanation has to be in the counting of the days of the Omer, like of the Omer. Asher yaviu lemachar biyom vav, which they're bringing the Omer tomorrow. Meaning, on the first night, you're not counting from when the carbon was brought, because the carbon hasn't been brought yet. The carbon is going to be brought tomorrow. So, therefore, for the first night, for sure, you're not counting to the bringing of the carbon Omer with a lamed. You're counting within the days. This is the first of the days of the Omer. And he says, Uviyom Macherim have a Gamkein Shapir, the Aminyan Yome de Omer Koi. The other days as well, we're going on the days of the counting of the number of the days of the Omer. Koi Kulam, that's what they're all going on. Masha Ein Kainim Tomar Lo Omer. If you use a Lamed, Tia HaKavona Belel Yudvav Lo Omer, Dahainu Lamasha Kvar Heviu. Lo Omer would mean the Omer that they already brought. Avol ba'omer lo kairak al yemei ha'omer. The beis is going on the days of the Omer. Di'efshar lefarshu al hava, because the beis wouldn't be going on the bringing of the carbon. The habeis mashma besoch. The beis is mashma within the Omer. Ma'ashen ken belamed efshar lefarshu al ha'hava. The lamed is referring to the carbon. Kein nira lenias daiti. So you see from the Taz favors the beis. You also see a little bit of what the issue may be, whether we're going to the carbon, the days of the Omer. You say hayom yom Shnei Yomim Ba'omer, it's the second day of the days of Sefiras HaOmer, or La'omer from the time we brought the carbon HaOmer. Those would be the two. So I wanted to suggest as follows on this issue. There's an interesting point that Rav Soloveitchik makes. Rav Soloveitchik says, you can see this is brought in Harei Kedem. This is in Harei Kedem, Harei Kedem over here it's in volume 2, Binyane HaMoadim. So he has a point here where Rav Soloveitchik was asked, can a person be Yotzei Sefiras HaOmer by counting today is the first day of the Omer, as opposed to today is one day? So instead of saying Hayom Yom Echad, you would say Rishon. Rishon is like what we call ordinal. You're saying the order it's in, first, second, third. Are you Yotzei Sefiras HaOmer if you count first, second, third, as opposed to 1, 2, 3, 4? And Rav Soloveitchik said you're not Yotzei in such a situation. You have to count the amount of days that have elapsed. You're counting 1, 2, 3, 4. You don't say first, second, third, or fourth. So what I was thinking based on this is, first of all, if you think about the difference between counting first, second, third, fourth, or 1, 2, 3, 4, the difference is as follows. When you're counting in regular, normal numbers, so in that situation, the count, you don't really, there's nothing special about the third day or the fourth day. You're just trying to count the total number of days. We're trying to count 49 days. If you were to count the number of students as they leave a classroom because only 20 students fit on the bus, so you wouldn't say first, second, third, fourth, because you don't care which student comes out first or second or third or fourth. You would count 1, 2, 3, 4 till you get to the number 20, because you're trying to count a total. That's what we're trying to do at Sefiras HaOmer. We're trying to count a total. We don't really care which day comes first. It happens to be the first day always comes first because time always moves in order, but it doesn't really make a difference which day is first or second, according to the basic mitzvah. It simply matters that we're counting a total number. That's why we count. echad as opposed to rishon. That's why we count 1, 2, 3, 4 as opposed to first, second, third, fourth. But if you look at Sefiras HaOmer a little bit more on a Kabbalistic level, you will see that it really does make a difference which day we are on, first, second, third, or fourth. We're not just counting a total. That's what you see in the Sidurim, talks about the different sefiros that are associated with Sefiras HaOmer, Chesed, Shevechesed, Gevura, Tiferes, all of these different things. Also, Lag BaOmer. We celebrate Lag BaOmer, so that's also, we care about what day is the 33rd day of the Omer, not simply counting the totals. So what I thought to say was as follows. If the counting would have been Rishon Sheni, the proper grammar would be Beis. And a little piece of evidence to that is when we count the day of the week. At the end of davening every morning, we say Hayom Yom Rishon Bashabis. We say it with a base. Today is the first day of the week. Hayom Sheni Bashabis. Anytime you count in that, in terms of the order, you count in an ordinal sense, you generally will use a base. You say it's the first of. That's what the base means. Whereas if you count numbers, echad, then it makes more sense to say to the time, lamed, to the time we're bringing the Korban Omer. So what may have occurred, and again, this is just a theory, what may have occurred is that the proper grammar should be lamed. Since we count echad, shnei yomim, shlosha, since we count in terms of numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, really the proper grammar would be a lamed. But since in terms of the meaning, really, especially on certain Kabbalistic levels and just in terms of the celebration of Lag BaOmer and things like that. So there is a certain meaning given to the days. We do, in a certain sense, look at it as first, second, third, or fourth. So, however it developed, I don't know. But that's why the bays started to seem appropriate, because it's the first of the Omer. We don't call it Lag LaOmer, we call it Lag BaOmer, because there we really mean it's the 33rd day of the Omer. We're referring to where it is in the count. So we say, that's why we say a base. I was pointing to this out to a friend of mine who knows a little bit of grammar. He said he thinks it may really go both ways. It could be they're interchangeable, and it could be it doesn't matter, Beis or Lamed, in terms of grammar. But for just one little piece of evidence here, if you take a look, a piece of evidence to what I am suggesting here, whether it's correct or not, I don't know. But take a look here in Parshas Noach, B'shna sheish me'os shana l'chai Noach, b'chodesh hasheni, in the second month. So there, the word sheni means second. It actually is ordinal. Rishon sheni. It's not two. It's second, and we use a base. B'chodesh hasheni, within the second month, and then it says b'shiva asar yom la chodesh, and shiva asar really is 17. 17 days to the month. We're not using. It's not the 17th. But it is 17, so it's 17, then you use a lamed. When you're trying to 17 days to the month, you use a lamed. So there is a little bit of a piece of evidence. You see this in certain other places. You have to look through all of Tanakh to really see how it works. But you do see some reference to this idea that when we talk in terms of Rishon and Sheni, you use a base, Rishon B'chodesh, Rishon BaOmer, Rishon Bashabis. When we talk about Echad, Shnei Yomim, in that type of way, then hayom. So in those situations, hayom shnayim yom, or hayom shlosha yomim, rather hayom. Right. So if you say hayom shnei yomim, hayom shlosha yomim. So in those situations, so then you're going to use the lamed. Could be that's where the difference came. That's not the main point of the shiur. That's just a theory, a possible explanation of the difference between the beis and the lamed. But now I want to focus, I'm focusing in on a couple Tosas and trying to answer one very simple question in Tosas. Tosas over here says, going in Menachos, Daf Samachem and Beis Usfartem Lachem Shetei Sfirah L'chol Echad V'Yachad, the Gemara mentions that we count, every individual needs to count the Omer. We learned that out from the Pasuk. So Tosas says, Gabe Yovel Ksiv V'Safart L'cha Da'abezdin Ka'amar L'Rachmana. It says that the Bezdin needs to count by Yovel. You have to count the years till the 50th year. V'Shemor Bezdin Sofrenu Mevarchin. Tosas says maybe Bezdin counts and makes a bracha. Kimo She'anu Mevarchin Al Sefiras HaOmer. In the same fashion that we make a bracha by Sefiras HaOmer. So just note over here that the way Tosas is phrasing it is maybe Bezdin counts and makes the bracha, the way we make the bracha. Now, is Tosas sure that they count, and he's just asking about the bracha? Is he not even sure that they count? You have to know. We're going to talk about this. V'gabe zava, and by a zava, she counts zayin nikiyim. Nowadays, a woman who is a nida also counts a zayin nikiyim. They count 7 clean days. Tichsiv v'safra, it says she counts. Lo shayach ba bracha, it's not shayach to make a bracha. Kevon shesoseres, because it's possible that she's going to have to start over. It's possible if the woman doesn't have a clean day, she's going to have to start over, so we don't want to make a bracha. Because if she sees even on the 7th day, it's going to make the count start over, so she shouldn't say a bracha. Certainly from the end of Tosafos, it sounds like Tosafos is bothered by the bracha issue. And what's the issue? If it is bracha, what's the issue? It sounds like perhaps Tosafos has an issue with bracha levatala. It's a little difficult. The Achronim ask, should it really be a bracha levatala if a person does the mitzvah and is counting, making a bracha, and then starts over? So big deal. It's not necessarily a bracha levatala. But again, not 100% clear. Is Tosafos saying that a woman who's a nida should count verbally? We'll talk about this also. A woman who's a zava. Nowadays, the people, women who are nida, treat themselves as a zava. So is he saying that the count of the zayin, the kiyum of the 7 clean days, you have to do it verbally? He's just not sure. Tosafos is just not sure if you make a bracha. Is the issue whether you count at all? What exactly is Tosafos bothered by? And if you're going to say that the issue is counting, who cares? The fact that the count might be disturbed, or the fact that the count might be overturned, why should that be a reason to count verbally, not to count verbally? What is going on over here exactly in Tosafos? That's the question. Now this Tosafos comes up again in Ksubis. We'll read the language over there. Tosafos says, Vim Tomar Amayin Mivareches Zava al Sefirah. He asks straight out, why doesn't a Zava make a bracha? Kimosha Mivarchen al Sefiras HaOmer, like we make a bracha by Sefiras HaOmer. Daksiv v'safra, because it says count, she should count, just like by Sefiras HaOmer. V'yeshlom ardein mivarchen ala b'yovel. So here Tosafos says, no, we only make a bracha by Yovel. Here Tosafos is sure. Before he said Shema, you only make a bracha by Yovel. Shemivarchen bezdin b'chol shana, shaliolam yuchal limnos keseder. You know you're going to be able to make the bracha and count. You're not going to have to start over at all, so you for sure make a bracha. V'chein Omer, the same by the Omer. Aval zava, but when it comes to a zava, shemtira tistor, where if a zava was to see blood, she would have to start over, ein la limnos. So you think Tosafos is going to ask ein la levarich, you think he's going to end off, she doesn't have to make a bracha, because he's been talking about the bracha the whole time. Here he suddenly says, she doesn't have to count. So what's going on over here? Is Tosafos questioning whether she counts out loud, or is Tosafos questioning whether you make the bracha? Again, he starts off talking about bracha, ends off talking about counting. What's going on over here? Pashtus, the counting that we do Sefiras HaOmer, again, machlokas, whether Sefiras HaOmer is doraisa or derabbanan nowadays, and the counting, that's the machlokas about. But the bracha, mistama, is derabbanan. So what are we talking about over here? Are we asking whether or not she should count? Are we asking whether or not make the bracha? It's unclear from Tosafos. That's the question we're going to address. Now, I'll mention over here the Shalah. The Shalah is a famous Shalah. You can see the Shalah is brought in the Mesoras HaShas on the page in Ksubis over there. And the Shalah notes this problem, that it says limnos at the end, and he says maybe it's a mistake. Maybe it should have been levarich. This might have been an error in the way it was printed. He sends you over here to Tosafos and Menachos, says look over there, you'll see we're talking about bracha. And therefore, based on what the Shalah says in terms of a zava, a woman counting her zayin nikiyim, anida, they certainly should count verbally. That's not a question in Tosafos. Just like we count Sefiras HaOmer verbally out loud, the woman should count her zayin nikiyim out loud. But the only question was, do you make a bracha? And Tosafos says, since you might have to start over, you don't make a bracha. And that's a very big chiddush from the Shalah, that a woman needs to count the zayin nikiyim out loud verbally. We do not hold like that. It's a shita that is rejected by most poskim. We'll take a look at the Redbaz, see how the Redbaz addresses that issue. The question was asked as follows: Od yilamdenu v'yorinenu b'mor Torah so dechsivu svartem lachem v'lamanu shetzarich lispor mamish kilomar lahotzi b'svasav hayom kach v'kach v'gam shetzarich levarich olah v'gam shetzarich me'umad. All these halachas by Sefiras HaOmer, you have to count, you have to make a bracha, you have to stand up, you do it out loud. They ask the question to the Redbaz, and it's simple: why the woman, by a woman counting 7 zayin nikiyim, 7 clean days, it also says she counts. There's no requirement to say it out loud. There's no requirement to any of these things. Well, the only difference is svartem lachem and v'safra la. That's not much of a difference. Why is that true? So the question would just assume that the woman does not have to count out loud. And the Radvaz answers, they've asked this question, it's going to be a bracha levatala. That's how he understands Tosafos at first. The reason why she doesn't make a bracha on sefirah, it's a bracha levatala. He says, I have a difficulty with this. You say aneinu when you're fasting, even though you might end up messing up your fast. So we don't say, oh, you were a liar when you said aneinu. At that time you were fasting. Even though some argue, that's how, even though there are those that argue, that's what most people say. Most poskim, even if she has to count again because she sees she's not clean 7 days straight, so she's still, it's not a problem. She should still say the bracha. It's not a bracha levatala. So what's the difference? So he says an answer as follows. Maybe when it comes to a nida, if she sees blood, everything is cancelled. She starts all over. There's nothing here. Maybe by a fast day, even if you end up messing up your fast, at the time you were fasting, you were still fasting. He says, if that's the pshat, that might be why you don't need to verbally count either. Not only, it doesn't only go on the bracha, you don't verbally count at all. We don't want her to count, and then she's like a liar in a count. He says, all these answers I'm giving, it's a dochik in my opinion. So finally, the Radbaz answers, the mitzvah of Sefiras HaOmer is something you must do. There's no way to avoid it. It's an obligation. That's why you need a bracha, you need to count, you need to stand up. But the counting of 7 clean days ain't a mitzvah hechreiches. It's not an obligation. She doesn't want to become pure for her husband. She doesn't want to eat kodshim. She doesn't want to enter the Beis HaMikdash. If she wants to be tamei, she could be tamei. For that reason, she doesn't make a bracha. She doesn't do it verbally. She doesn't have to stand up. So that's what the Radbaz says. As I mentioned earlier, he deals with this issue. Is it really a bracha levatala? He doesn't like that pshat so much, but maybe that is the pshat. We don't want her to be a liar in her count if it should be contradicted, if she has to start over. And then finally he says maybe the pshat is it's not something that's obligation, so therefore she doesn't count out loud. So that's the discussion amongst the achronim in this Tosafos. But I want to go back and see if we can think of some other answer for this. And in order to answer the question, I'm going to see a few sources. But first, I just got to go back one more time to the Tosafos and reframe the question. In both of these Tosafos seems to jump back and forth between the counting and the brachas if it's all the same thing. Do you count? Maybe you don't make the bracha. Maybe you count. Maybe you shouldn't count. Maybe you shouldn't make the bracha. As if these words are interchangeable. So from the pashtus of just reading the Tosafos, it sounds as if Tosafos is saying that it's all the same issue. That whether you count verbally or whether you, let's say by the Zava, whether you count verbally or whether by Yovel, the Bezdin, whether you count verbally, whether you make the bracha, it's all one issue. Which is, again, very strange. Why should it all be one issue? Why is that all the same issue? It could be by Sefiras HaOmer, okay, counting. Maybe that's a doraisa you have to count. Maybe even nowadays it's doraisa that you have to count, even when there's no carbon omer. Again, that was Machlokas Rishonim, whether nowadays Sefiras HaOmer is doraisa, but that comes from the Torah regardless. That's a doraisa. So that's one discussion. The bracha is only d'Rabbanan. So why is this all the same discussion? What's Tosafos saying over here? If you don't make a bracha, you don't count. It doesn't really make any sense. Of course you count Sefiras HaOmer. That's a doraisa. And then there's another issue. Do we make a bracha? That should be a separate issue. So why is Tosafos bouncing back and forth? Does she count? No, she doesn't make a bracha. As if it's all the same thing. It sounds like, in some way, it's all as if it's all the same thing. So I want to point out a few shitas that we find in the Achronim, try to give an answer to this. First interesting shita the Gra points out in Shulchan Aruch. Gra says, this is tough pei tes, The Gra says, going on a case of the Ravya, and he just mentions, I'm not going to go through the whole case, but he says, Ve'efsher shezeu tam shel Ravya. The issue over here is, you count wrong. There seems to be a shita that you have to count again with a bracha if you count wrong. So the question is, the bracha is derabanan. Why would you count again? He says, maybe the reason is, Gam ken lefi hanuscha shelohem shekasav lomer b'sefirah HaOmer. He says the Ravya holds that when we say the bracha, we don't say a bracha like we do nowadays. You say, Al Sefiras HaOmer, stop, bracha, and then you count. The way we do it is, we say the bracha, that's like the derabanan, and then we count. So if it's doraisa nowadays or not, fine, but then you count, then you do the mitzvah. Right? So nowadays, for example, if you would have some kind of a suffix, you wouldn't repeat the bracha. Let's say you're not sure whether you should be counting, you don't know, maybe you missed a day, or you don't know if it's yet dark outside. So in such a situation, you wouldn't count with a bracha, because suffix bracha is laka. We don't say a bracha if we're not sure, but you would just say hayom yom, today's the following day, because then you're being yotze, the counting, you're doing the mitzvah, the doraisa mitzvah of Sefiras HaOmer, assuming it's doraisa nowadays. So the problem was that the Ravya seems to say that if you're not sure you did it right, you count again with a bracha. Why would you count again with a bracha? Bracha is for sure the Rabbanan. So the Gra says that the Ravya might be l'shitaso, because he held that you don't make a bracha and then count. You count in the bracha. You say Asher kedishanu mitzvasav v'tzivanu al Sefiras HaOmer shehayom yom echad ba'omer. That today it's all one bracha. Umashma medivreim shusiyam habracha. The number that you're counting is the finishing of the bracha, meaning the counting and the merging counting and the bracha according to Ravya, it's all merged together. So it would be like a Kiddush, for example. There's a mitzvah to be Mekadesh, to mention Shabbos when we start Kiddush. And how do we make Kiddush? The Chachamim say, do it in a bracha form. So if you mess up Kiddush, you'd obviously do it again. That you'd do the bracha again if you messed it up in some way. Because the whole mitzvah, the Rabbanan said, is the way we make Kiddush, even though Kiddush might be Doraisa, but the Rabbanan formulated a bracha to do the Kiddush. So according to the Ravya, it's similar when it comes to Sefiras HaOmer. The Rabbanan said the way to count Sefiras HaOmer is through a bracha. Okay, so that's just the first interesting thing. Here's the first place where we see that the bracha and the counting, they're not two separate things. They can be merged together. We're going to see more sources. This is in the Shulchan Aruch over here. Now that's in terms of the Gra, the Ravya. Now, actually, one more thing first, then we'll take a look at the Shulchan Aruch. There's a Tshuvas Rabbi Akiva Eiger, a famous Tshuvas Rabbi Akiva Eiger, who is discussing the discussion there is, can you fulfill Sefiras HaOmer without saying anything verbally? Maybe you can just write it down. And he suggests maybe you can just write down on a piece of paper Hayom Yom Echad Ba'Omer, and you'll be yotze counting the first day. Who says that it needs to be verbal? This also gets into a discussion about Shomea Ka'ona. There's a shaila about Shomea Ka'ona by Sefiras HaOmer. Well, Shomea Ka'ona, do you even need it to be verbal at all? So that's another source, again, of how do we count the Omer. Here we have the Ravya first telling us that you count in a bracha form. Now you have Rabbi Akiva Eiger saying maybe you don't need to count verbally. One more source to show you interesting, and that is really just the same Shulchan Aruch that we saw before. The Mechaber says, how do you count? Keitzad? B'yom harishon Omer hayom yom echad. You say today is day one. Ad shemagia l'shiva yamim v'az yom hayom shiva yamim shem shavu echad. If you notice, the word ba'omer is put in by the Ramah. As we mentioned before, the Ramah says you say with a bays, ba'omer. But according to the Mechaber, you don't say anything. You just say today is day one. Now, the Achronim ask, and I saw this as well in the Harei Kedem, he mentions this point. He has a number of sections on Sefiras HaOmer. The Achronim say, how is the Mechaber, you're counting today is day one and not mentioning it's even Omer? It doesn't make any sense. You just say today is one, and that counts as Sefiras HaOmer. You haven't mentioned what you're even counting to. So some answer very simply no, because the Mechaber is assuming you're saying a bracha. So if you're saying a bracha, you say, Asher Kedishanim Zvayiz Vitzvan Al Sefiras HaOmer, Hayom Yom Echad, so you're fine, because it's obvious you're counting the Omer since you just said the bracha Al Sefiras HaOmer. Once again, in the Mechaber, you see that there's a merging between the counting and the bracha, because you don't necessarily say Yom Yom Echad Ba'Omer. The count on its own would be nothing. You need the bracha to make it clear that you're counting to the Omer. So those are just a number of sources. Based on these sources, I'm going to suggest something a little radical in Tosafos, but I think if you think about it, it's not so radical. Perhaps what Tosafos means is as follows. Perhaps, according to Tosafos, the question here is, what really is the mitzvah d'oraisa of Sefiras HaOmer? Meaning, had the Rabbanan never come along, what would you need to do to fulfill the mitzvah d'oraisa of Sefiras HaOmer? So I have a suggestion that perhaps on a Doraisa level, you would have not needed to count each day at all. Perhaps what's the simple meaning of the pasuk? The simple meaning of the pasuk is count 49 days and then make Shavuos. The simple meaning of the pasuk is that you need a count, just means you need to keep track. Keep track of 49 days in order to make Shavuos the proper day, because Shavuos is 49 days from when we count the beginning of Sefiras HaOmer, from Imachras HaPesach, from the second day of Pesach. That's how we figure out when Shavuos is. Perhaps Tosafos held that on a D'oraisa level, counting the Omer, doing the mitzvah of counting the Omer, again, this would be very radical if Tosafos held like this. We don't find this in other Rishonim. But perhaps Tosafos held that the mitzvah D'oraisa counting Sefiras HaOmer, you would be Yotzei simply by keeping track and accurately celebrating Shavuos. When you would make Shavuos on the right day, on the proper day, you would have then fulfilled Sefiras HaOmer, because you've counted, you've kept track of the 49 days until Shavuos. And that is the mitzvah D'oraisa. What we do of saying it verbally, or even what Rabbi Akiva Eiger, to write it down, everything that we do might be a D'Rabbanan way of fulfilling the mitzvah. In other words, the Rabbanan said, you know how we want you to fulfill this mitzvah? We would like you to count every single day, starting Mimachras HaPesach. Every single day count. The Rabbanan said, even though on a D'oraisa level, all you need to do is keep track, but the Rabbanan said, do the mitzvah, a better way to do the mitzvah is to count every single day. That's what the Rabbanan said. But really, on a D'oraisa level, perhaps that wasn't the case. If that is the case, Tosafos reads beautifully, because what Tosafos is really saying, everything Tosafos is talking about is D'Rabbanan. Of course, there's a mitzvah D'oraisa of Sefiras HaOmer, but that mitzvah D'oraisa is just to keep track and make Shavuos on the proper day. What Tosafos wants to know is on a D'Rabbanan level, Sefiras HaOmer is to count verbally. That's the D'Rabbanan. And it's to count verbally with a bracha. And that makes so much more sense now why the counting and the bracha are merged together. It's all one thing. Just like the bracha is D'Rabbanan, the counting is also D'Rabbanan. The fact that we count verbally is a requirement D'Rabbanan. You could just keep track and it would be good enough. Just like a Zava just keeps track. And Tosafos is asking, this din D'Rabbanan, that we count verbally every single day and we make a bracha, that's why it's interchangeable, did the Rabbanan have the same requirement by a Zava, or is it enough to keep track? Is that enough? And that's why Tosafos says, oh, you know what? That now it also makes a lot more sense what the fact that if she sees blood, she has to start over. Tosafos said, you know what? Since the woman is going to start over, every single time she's not clean, she has to start over the count. The Rabbanan decided for a woman who's a Zava, better that she just keep track. They didn't add any D'Rabbanan component to the mitzvah of having to say it verbally, or any D'Rabbanan component to the mitzvah of bracha. They didn't add any of that because since there's a possibility, it's going to be a sasra, since it's a possibility, she'll start over, they didn't want to add that verbal component in that particular case. And that's the same thing Tosafos is discussing by Bezdin when it comes to Yovel. Was there in the first Tosafos Shema, maybe Bezdin counts and makes a bracha. Second one says, Tosafos Vadai, for sure by Yovel you make a bracha and you count, no shaila. But that was the discussion in Tosafos. Once you understand that everything Tosafos is discussing, even though Tosafos is quoting psukim, even though it's safarta lecha, usfartam lechem, yes, we understand that. But of course there's a D'oraisa to count. But that D'oraisa might be enough to have a calendar and mark it. Maybe it's enough to write it down. Maybe it's enough just to keep track. We don't even know. We don't know what the minimal requirement for the D'oraisa is. Tosafos is just asking, we know what we do. And that's a Rabbanan requirement. We say a bracha, and we count verbally, and we don't know if that's from the Torah. We don't know what the minimum requirement is, but we know that we do that at the very least. It's the Rabbanan. Certainly, maybe the Rabbanan said to count verbally. Maybe you don't have to count verbally. Maybe it's enough to write it down. Maybe it's enough to just keep track on a calendar. But Tosafos was saying, is that true also when it comes to Yovel? Is that true also when it comes to Zava? That is the chiddush I would like to suggest in this Tosafos, and I hope you enjoyed the Shiur. And again, in the description box below, I will include a link to the Shiur. If you are doing the Daf Yomi, the main purpose of this channel is to learn the Daf Yomi. We have many Daf Yomi videos, playlists through the whole brachas, the whole Shabbos. Right now, in the middle of Eruvin, you can catch up, or you can start with Daf Yomi wherever it is. Please subscribe to the channel if you are using this channel. Like the channel, share this with other people, and hatzlacha in all of your learning.